The first time I noticed something off about David's behavior was on a Wednesday evening in late September. He came home with a faint scent of perfume clinging to his collar. Not mine, something floral and expensive. When I asked about his day, his eyes darted to the left before settling back on mine. A split-second tell I'd come to recognize in our 12 years of marriage. "Just the usual meetings," he said, kissing my cheek before heading upstairs to shower. The usual meetings. The same answer he'd given me 3 times that week. I stood in our kitchen, the pasta water boiling over as I gripped the counter's edge. David had never been a good liar. That's what I had always loved about him. His transparency was refreshing in a world where everyone seemed to hide behind carefully crafted personas. Over dinner, I watched him push his food around the plate, his mind clearly elsewhere. His phone kept lighting up with notifications which he'd quickly silence without acknowledging. Once, I caught a glimpse of a message preview. "Need to see you tomorrow." No name attached. "Everything okay at work?" I asked casually, refilling my wine glass. "Oh yeah, just this new client. They're demanding." He cleared his throat. "How's your sister doing with the baby?" Deflection. Another red flag. I began noticing other changes. Late nights at the office became routine. His weekend golf games stretched from 4 hours to 6. Our joint credit card showed charges at restaurants I'd never heard of, always during lunch hours. And most telling of all, the intimacy between us had dwindled to perfunctory kisses and distracted conversations. The evidence mounted until I couldn't ignore it anymore. I did what I never thought I'd do. I checked his phone while he was in the shower. The messages confirmed my worst fears. Dozens of texts to someone named AL, talking about meeting up, about how complicated things were getting, about needing to figure things out. My stomach lurched when I read, "I can't keep lying to her." I confronted him that night, my hands shaking as I placed his phone on the coffee table between us. "Who is AL?" His face drained of colour. "Emma, I can explain." "Are you having an affair?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, hollow and brittle. "What?" No exclamation mark. The vehemence in his denial caught me off guard. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, David?" Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I think. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd seen countless times. I've been meeting with a real estate agent." Of all the things I expected him to say, that wasn't it. "A real estate agent? Why would you need to?" "Because my company is transferring me to Boston. I've known for weeks, but I couldn't figure out how to tell you." I stared at him, processing his words. A transfer to Boston, nearly 3,000 miles from our Seattle home, from my job, my friends, my entire support system. "That's what you've been hiding, a job transfer?" I asked, relief and confusion warring within me. His eyes met mine, and something in them made my momentary relief evaporate. "Not exactly," he said quietly. "There's more." "There's more," David repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. He gestured for me to sit down. I lowered myself onto the edge of the couch, suddenly aware of how loud my heartbeat had become. The room felt airless despite the open windows letting in the cool evening breeze. "AL is Alexis Lancaster. She's not just a real estate agent," he admitted, reaching for his phone. He pulled up a photo of a striking woman with auburn hair and intelligent eyes. "She's also my sister." I blinked, trying to process his words. "Your sister? You don't have a sister?" "Half-sister, technically. Same father, different mothers." David's hands were trembling now. I only found out about her existence 3 months ago. The floor seemed to shift beneath me. In 12 years of marriage, I thought I knew everything about my husband, his childhood in Connecticut, his parents' messy divorce when he was 14, his strained relationship with his father who had moved to Florida and remarried. "Your father had another child? And you never knew?" David nodded slowly. "Dad never told me." "Alexis reached out after she did one of those DNA ancestry tests. She got my contact information through the service." He swallowed hard. When she first messaged me, I thought it was some kind of scam. But then she sent photos. And Emma, she looks just like my dad. Same eyes, same smile. I tried to imagine receiving such life-altering news from a stranger. Why didn't you tell me? I needed time to process it myself. Then when I found out about the Boston transfer, which is real, by the way, I discovered Alexis lives just outside the city. It felt like some kind of sign. He looked down at his hands. I've been meeting with her to get to know her, and yes, she's been showing me properties in Massachusetts too. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by hurt. This wasn't infidelity in the traditional sense, but it was still a massive betrayal of trust. You've been secretly meeting your newfound sister for months, planning a cross-country move, and you didn't think to include me in any of this. My voice rose with each word. I was going to tell you everything, I swear. I just wanted to have all the details figured out first. That's not how marriage works, David. I stood up, needing to move, to breathe. We're supposed to figure things out together. David reached for my hand, but I pulled away. There's something else you should know, he said, his expression darkening. When Alexis and I started talking, certain things about my father's past started coming to light. The way he said it made my skin crawl. What things? Things that explain why he was so distant my whole life. Why he could never look me in the eye. David took a deep breath. And why he left so much money specifically to me in his will, with that strange stipulation that I couldn't access it until I turned 40. I remembered the inheritance, nearly $2 million that had been sitting in a trust for years, waiting for David's milestone birthday next month. We discussed using it for retirement, maybe buying a vacation home someday. I think my father was trying to make amends for something, David continued. Something terrible. Before he could elaborate, his phone rang, Alexis's name flashing on the screen. David glanced at me, silently asking permission to answer. Take it, I said coldly. You might as well. I clearly don't know who you are anymore. He accepted the call, his voice low. Hey, now's not a good time. What? Slow down, I can't understand. His face paled dramatically. Are you sure? That can't be right. I watched as my husband's world seemed to collapse around him, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. Whatever Alexis was telling him, it was devastating. When he finally hung up, he looked at me with haunted eyes. Emma, he whispered, we need to pack our bags. Now. Pack our bags? What are you talking about? I demanded, watching as David moved with frantic energy toward our bedroom. Alexis found something in Dad's storage unit in Boston, he called over his shoulder. Documents, photos, evidence. I followed him upstairs where he was already pulling luggage from the closet. Evidence of what, David? You're scaring me. He stopped abruptly, his hands gripping a half-folded sweater. My father wasn't just a businessman, Emma. The construction company, the real estate holdings, they were fronts. Alexis found ledgers going back decades showing money movements that don't make sense. Offshore accounts, transactions with names she recognized from old FBI most wanted lists. My mind struggled to catch up. Are you saying your father was involved in organized crime? I think it's worse than that. David's voice dropped. I think he was an informant who got in too deep. The money he left me, I think it was blood money. Payment for keeping secrets. I sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. The man I'd met only a handful of times before his death 3 years ago, the quiet, stern man who seemed perpetually disappointed in his only son, had been living a double life. Alexis said someone broke into her apartment this afternoon. Nothing was taken, but her home office was ransacked, specifically the files she'd been compiling about our father. A chill ran through me. Who would do that? Someone who doesn't want the past dug up. David zipped the suitcase with finality. Someone who knows about the money and what it represents. The inheritance becomes accessible next month. That can't be a coincidence. So you want us to run? To Boston? I asked incredulously. To Alexis. She's the only one who knows the full picture. She's been researching this for years, trying to understand why her mother left her father so suddenly when she was a baby, why she lived in fear for decades. I stood up, placing my hands on David's shoulders to stop his frenzied packing. Slow down. We need to think this through. If what you're saying is true, we should contact the authorities. With what? Suspicious accounting from a dead man and a break-in that might be unrelated? He shook his head. No, we need more information first. And we need to make sure Alexis is safe. I looked into my husband's eyes, the same eyes I'd fallen in love with years ago, and saw raw fear mixed with determination. The magnitude of what he was facing hit me. His entire understanding of his family, his father, his own identity had been upended in the span of a few months. Okay, I finally said, reaching for my own suitcase. But I'm not doing this because you've handled things well. I'm doing this because, despite everything, we're still partners. He nodded, visibly relieved. Thank you. 3 days later, we were sitting in Alexis's dining room in Newton, Massachusetts, surrounded by boxes of documents. Meeting her had been surreal. She really did have their father's eyes, and the same nervous habit of tapping her fingers when thinking deeply. The picture emerging from the papers was disturbing. Robert Harrington, respected businessman and distant father, had spent decades working with federal agents to bring down a network of financial criminals. His construction business had been used to launder money, all with the knowledge of a select few in the FBI. But somewhere along the lines blurred. Robert began skimming, building his own fortune from the criminal proceeds. He was playing both sides, Alexis explained, showing us a series of photos featuring Robert with men whose faces I recognized from news stories about organized crime. And when he tried to get out, they threatened him, threatened his family. That's why he distanced himself from me, David murmured, the realization dawning. It wasn't that he didn't care, he was trying to protect me. And the inheritance? I asked. Insurance, Alexis replied. Money to keep you safe if they ever came looking. But he never thought they'd still be watching after all these years. David reached for my hand across the table. I'm sorry for keeping this from you, Emma. I thought I was protecting you too. I squeezed his hand, understanding flooding through me. You were doing what you thought was right, just like your father. So what now? David asked his sister. Alexis pushed forward a sealed envelope. Dad left instructions. There's a safety deposit box in a bank in Providence. The key is in here, along with names we can trust. People who can help us untangle this mess and make sure the right people finally face justice. As we sat there, the three of us bound by secrets and blood, I realized that the lie I'd caught my husband in had led us to a truth far more complex and dangerous than I could have imagined. Our lives would never be the same. But looking at David and Alexis, I also saw something unexpected. Hope. Hope that the shadows of the past could finally be brought into the light. Outside, the Boston rain began to fall, washing away the day's heat. Whatever came next, we would face it together. No more secrets, no more lies, just the complicated, messy truth, and the strength to confront it head on.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.